All right, guys, so we are live and excited to have the Multilogin team here with me again. I apologize for being in the cafe for this recording, guys. I was thinking we were just going to have a call today, but I was even more excited to go live. Always good to share with the community. So why don't you guys reintroduce yourselves? I'm sure most of my audience knows who you are already and what you do, but I'll let you do yourself some justice with a proper introduction, and then what are some of the main things you want to cover today?
So, hi everyone. Yeah, Taivo, go ahead.
Yeah, I will be the quiet one today, so I will do fast my part. So my name is Taivo, I'm an account manager. Maybe many people have been spoken to me in different demos, introduction calls, so you may know me from there. And all the rest today will be shared by Sten, and Sten, here you go.
So my name's Stan. I'm one of the co-founders of Multilogin. I'm heavily involved in researching browser fingerprints, how they are used to detect users, how we can use masking to circumvent these things. And previously I've been also very involved in product related things. Now I'm kind of just in a deep research mode, so specifically for you guys to get you some answers on how to better set up. So today I have a couple of questions that John asked me to cover. Majority of them will be related to related to understanding browser fingerprints, because actually when we interview users and we talk to them, there's really quite a bit of super affiliates that are running their businesses using Multilogin, and they all have their own secrets, they all have their own ideas, and all of them understand fundamentally how browser fingerprinting works. And actually they don't understand browser fingerprints on a technical level, but they understand the principles which underlie to a certain extent their success in the field. And today I would like to talk about these principles, because just by understanding them you can just succeed, and by applying this understanding you can get more ideas how you can utilize them, and in the end just get your accounts running until the heat death of the universe.
What are some of the main things, not to go off with other questions, but what are some of the most recent trends or interesting things you've seen come about? Because I know you don't have actual access to user accounts, but just from the feedback and conversations.
Trends, the typical trend that we see is browser fingerprint masking solutions, such as Multilogin, are winning the game. And we believe that because to a certain extent, there's a limited number of these parameters that users can gather. And solutions such as Multilogin came to a point where it is done effectively and is done to the way that it's difficult to detect. This is a trend. So a lot of the websites now rely on behavioral analysis. For example, Facebook, instead of checking, is your time zone corresponds to location of your IP address, they check in more depth. They start checking, for example, so how long the account is alive? Has there been any friends on this Facebook account? When this Facebook account has been registered? Is this account tied to another business manager, for example? So behavioral analysis, that's why rented accounts and real accounts are winning the game.
Super interesting to say that, because one of the biggest questions I get is the mismatch between profile, country of origination, and listed location versus your location as the actual human versus the proxy location. I find that you can mismatch, and it typically doesn't cause issues for the most part.
Probably. I have not researched this in depth. This all boils down to typicality of the behavior. So there's a lot of agencies that are, let's say, based in US and serving clients in Europe. There's agency who are based in UK and serving people in United States. So I don't think it could be a big trigger. However, for example, if the location in the browser fingerprints if there's a mismatch between the location and the browser fingerprints, and there's between your actual IP location, then there might be an issue, because it's just a sign of a proxy. And why would a normal user use a proxy? So,
can you give our listeners a better definition and understanding of what is fingerprinting, and also some examples of it being done well? Because I know there are competitors popping up, as you and I are very well aware of. What are some examples of competitors, or how you do it well, and then how you see some competitors not do it well?
First of all, really happy that there are more and more competitors. It actually makes us develop a better product. It drives a lot of things in Multilogin because of that. So really happy of that, and they also bring a lot of value to the community. So it's good. In terms of how to understand what is good or bad, it's a good question. There are 3 fundamental principles that we think about when developing Multilogin, and I will really try to be as brief as possible, but trying to understand them is really the key, one of the key to nailing down this part, which is browser fingerprints. Once you nail it down, then you can just take care of the rest, like optimizing your ad campaigns and maybe creating some good accounts with behavioral data. So the first fundamental principle is distinction or uniqueness. And this means that your browser profiles or fingerprints have to be unique, or at least in some sense distinct between each other. Browser fingerprints are parameters. Yes, it's information about you. It's just information about your browser, information about your computer. User agent, for example, it's a simple string that shows the operating system of your computer. For example, John, if you go to any browser or any website from your Mac right now, a website will understand that you're sitting from Mac. And that's a browser fingerprint. That's it. There's nothing very difficult about it. There's simple browser fingerprints, and then there are those fingerprints which kind of like hack your browser to understand more information about you. We don't need to really go in depth, but typically a browser fingerprint is just information about you. But here's the thing. A website can compile the list of your unique parameters, and then identify that it's you. Because, for example, John, you're currently using a Mac. Let's say you're using MacBook Pro, which was manufactured in 2021, let's say. And they have specific amount of hardware. However, there's gonna be another John too with the same Mac. However, he will have slightly different parameters. For example, he will have a different language selected. He will have a different IP address. He'll be living maybe in a different state. And this way, by having some parameter slightly different, websites can identify that it's you. So if you are managing loads of profiles without any solution to mask browser fingerprints, it becomes quite easy for a website to understand that it's you, especially at high scale of accounts. But for distinction, you have to be very careful with that. Now, does this mean that when you create a lot of browser profiles, does this mean that every profile has to have the same user agent? It doesn't mean that. However, because if you cannot get enough user agents, because there's maybe 10 user agents that are just popular right now. But you have to look for is that the browser profiles are distinct from each other. So at least one parameter is different, at least 2 parameters are different. But actually, even if there are 2 browser profiles with exactly the same parameters, and it's just 2 out of 100 that you're managing, it's also not too bad. So distinction have to come. You have to understand distinction, that there should always be a balance between just not changing too much, too much to an extent where you're becoming a purple cow, and enough so that it is difficult to website to identify that it's the same computer.
So part of it is the isolation of launching in a browser session with a proxy. That in itself, and storing unique cookie data, is a part of the equation. And then
it is part.
On the other side is the software itself making other little adjustments and unique variations, like subtle variations, to display to websites such as Facebook this person is doing the same exact thing, but very different than browser session B.
Absolutely. Cookie isolation is a very important topic. I actually didn't cover it because it's kind of natural and logical, but you're totally right. Like if you would like launch these different browser profiles from the same container, that would be so weird. So you're very right and very on point that the browser profile isolation in a separate container is part of a very important equation. Yes.
So from what you've seen, heard, and experienced yourself, have you found some of the alternatives to Multilogin do not do as good of a job with this? And in what ways so?
So one thing is, especially users in the community have to be aware of, is that there are very cheap solutions, that and I don't want to mean very cheap, but they are done using a very cheap technology, and the technology is called GS injection. A bit technical topic here, but essentially it means that they do not these solutions, they do not possess enough resources to develop their own browsers, such as, for example, we have Mimic. But there are also competitors who also compile their own browsers, which is good, which is also cool. Back maybe 2 years ago, we were the only one who were compiling our own browsers. Right now, there are a couple of other competitors who are also compiling their own browsers, which is good. However, this points out me to the next step. Yes, so for example, at the moment, we see there's around a couple of alternatives to Multilogin that do a good job, an okay job. Yes, like enough to not have this GS injection being detected. The second thing is, the second fundamental principle that I want to talk about, which relates to your question, John, is consistency. And consistency is something where browser parameters are consistent with each other. For example, previously I've also mentioned, for example, you're sitting in US and you want to create an account in UK, and you're changing a proxy to a UK location, but you forgot to change the time zone. And the website will see that the time zone is US based, but the location of the IP address is UK, is based in UK. So there's an inconsistency. And every solution on the market can also be judged by the way how it handles consistency checks. And especially for our for users in this community, like it is advised to perform your own due diligence on the solutions and how well they do that. The way how you can do that is you can utilize a couple of free public available website checks. These are publicly available websites that you go to, and they display some information to you. Are your browser fingerprints okay? There's a couple of them. Another one of very simple ones is whoer.net, WHOER.net. Second one is creep.gs, also a popular website, but we have to be careful about that. And PixelScan also is a website that also shows if there are some inconsistencies in your browsers. And whenever you want to choose one specific solution to mask your browser fingerprints, it's better to just go to these websites and see for yourselves how they look at your browser fingerprints. Because if these tests find specific inconsistency, then it's very likely that Facebook can also get triggered at those.
Can I share my screen and we look at an example real quick?
Yes. Let's do it. Yes.
I already pulled it up while you were going over the different websites. So here's my browser, and then here's a browser session for Multilogin on an IP address. So what is this telling us? So we understand. And for full context, I go against the grain a little bit from Multilogin's recommendations. I use what are probably data center proxies from my private proxy just because it's worked. Your recommendation for best practice is to use more residential or mobile, correct?
Yes.
Okay, cool. I just want to say that in case they see something they don't like here. I didn't want to throw them under the bus.
John, I understand the logic why data centers could work, and if it works, then it's good. However, the thing is that the thing is that we also analyze, like we check user feedback, and we just see that users who use residentials, they don't complain about
problems.
that.
Yeah.
John, but I know users personally who use cheap data center proxies.
Exactly.
And still get away with it. And they have accounts living for years, and ad spends are over 10,000 per month. I'm not sure if it's big enough per account, but they have a lot of them, which for me is always a mystery.
Yeah, it's interesting. So what can you explain from what we see here, looking at my own computer and what the information is here versus multi-login browser session off of the data center proxy?
So let's see. So Hoover, first of all, says that your disguise is 100%. And they don't employ a lot of consistency checks, but they do check if, for example, the location of your IP address or your proxy corresponds to your time zone. And as you can see, your disguise is 100%, and they don't find a lot of consistencies. They do find, for example, that you're using an anonymizer. Yes, which probably means your data center, you're using a data center proxy.
Yeah, there you go. So if I was using what Multilogin recommends, it would probably say no and it would be green. So this is on me, this is not on them.
Actually, John, it's very true. These websites are also not a single source of truth, because even some websites like this, they maybe can utilize a very complicated fingerprint detection that websites will never use. There, for example, we know a very good detection mechanism that can detect a lot of browsers that are utilizing that are masking fingerprints. But the thing is that the latency of such test is around 1 minute. What website will use a test that will increase the loading time by 1 minute? We're all marketers here, so can you imagine having a landing page that loads for 1 minute?
No.
Yeah. So it's good to start. It's good that you can start. Yeah. So we can go to Creep.js. What do you think? We can go to Creep.js.
How do you spell that?
CREEP Creep JS. Through J with J with the JS, yes, and just search it because it's gonna be it's not like this, and then you click on the first GitHub. Yes, nice one. This one, and you have to scroll down, and there it is. The first link. There you go.
This one.
So this is a website. Very techy, yeah. But
another language.
But there is some information we can see. On the top, we can see the trust score, which gives you a 100% A+. And this is also have to be very careful. Although this is a really good website and it utilizes a lot of systems to analyze whether there's been some changes in the browser fingerprints that websites can use to detect you. This website in particular, for example, on your site shows an A+, but there's a catch. If you install some extensions, then it will start to think that you're doing something bad. This is why this is not a very good way to base your opinion, but base your opinion about a specific solution. But still, it's an interesting thing to compare, for example, Multilogin browser profile or a browser profile of a different solution with your Chrome, just to see what are the differences.
So here's my own.
So it shows 100% because we did analyze this test, and we found a couple of things that we actually could tweak. And Multilogin works well in this regard. In the
doing this job, basically. That's what it's telling us, right? Beautiful. Another question that I had was around security. This is something that you've mentioned to me several times that you're very proud of, which is a very big draw for using your software over other solutions. and that comes with the, I might say this wrong, how you hash the passwords and you encrypt them properly. Can you explain what that means and how that benefits users?
Mm-hmm. So this is like we actually like Multilogin, we are individuals who are very concerned about user privacy. Multilogin originated as a privacy-based software. We provided free plans for users to take care of their privacy. At some point, we understood that like typically these are users that do not solve any business problem, and we really wanted to solve business problems. So we kind of just like stopped focusing on that. But deep inside, we're still hardcore believers of privacy and encryption, and hardcore believers of that you should own your data. So what Multilogin does, and I'm very proud of this because after a deep research, I can definitely say that no other solution does this. No other solution does this better than us. So the way it works is that. So it boils down to encryption. In Multilogin, when you create an account, you have a password. So for example, you have a master password. And I hope this password is secure and only you know about this password. So this password is used to encrypt the data inside the browser profiles. So this data of browser profiles is encrypted and is stored, of course, on our servers on encrypted form. The thing is that we don't have access to it. If I right now go to get access to the database of your browser profiles, John, I will see only gibberish. I will not see anything, nothing. I will not see cookies, and I don't have any backdoors. I don't have any ways how I can unencrypt it, because you, as an owner of the account, possess the master password. It is the key to unlock this data. Now, why I know that Multilogin performs very well here and other solutions do not. You can actually make an experiment. It's a costly experiment, but if you really want to know, you can definitely check. Open any solution that you have that claims they encrypt browser profile data and try to reset the password. Meaning not change the password, but reset it. Meaning that you forgot your password. You forgot your password and you reset the password. And if you get access to your data, this means that their keys are stored just on a separate server somewhere, or they don't encrypt anything at all. Why this is like this? This is because if you forgot your password, if you forgot the key, how can this data be retrieved then? This only means that there is no encryption at all, or there is, or the key to unlock the data is stored on some servers. Now, why is this important? So this again boils down to like privacy mentality, which are deep down in our hearts. Governments, especially in the current situations, can like all companies should be government compliant. And if police knocks on any solution's door, they have to be compliant. That's it, or they risk losing their business. That's the world we live in. That's what happens, and you cannot deal with this with any way. Now, if at some point some data of Multilogin will get accessed, this will be gibberish because nobody can open the data. Only you knowing the master password. However, if there's some other solution that doesn't do this encryption or have their keys stored on their servers, of course, they will share the keys as well. Here are the keys, here are the data of the browser profiles, and now all of your cookies and the data will be accessed. And actually, John, I'm going to be honest, like this is a very tough decision for us as well, because having this encryption in place sometimes also stifles our development speed. We cannot develop the few features because of this, but we still decide to believe in this. It's just like you just decide to believe in this and just do with it. You just set yourself a challenge, and that's how we do it. We simply.
I respect it though.
We just focus on this. We could have developed much things faster, develop more features, but we still decide to stick to it. And right now we at a point where we actually found a way how to, even with this encryption, develop faster.
I will share one, I don't want to say use case, but example of this, a good or bad example of this. It's a little bit of both, I guess. So I've actually forgot our password one time, probably the first year I was using Multilogin, and I had no idea it was going to wipe out all my cookies. And because I think the browser sessions remain with the labels and the IP set, like the proxy settings, but all the data gets wiped, right? So
yes,
the positive is that, I mean, even I lost access to it. I got back in, but I lost all that data and information. So that's negative, I guess. But the positive is that I was protected, because if someone else did get into my account, they guessed my password, they swipe, whatever. I'm not smart in this space. I'm more protected in that way, right? They can't just hop back into my Multilogin, open up a browser session, and start running my ad spend up, right? So that actually meant, it was frustrating in the moment, but it actually meant a lot to me once I understood.
Yes, definitely. And if at some point we'll live in a totalitarian I don't know, world order, and we'll have to share data, then if the big leader gets your data, he will not know a single thing you did.
Yeah. Next question would be, some alternatives to Multilogin offer logging in a regular browser and opening up the browser session within the browser. Why is that not something that you build into your software? What's the pros and cons behind that?
I've investigated the solution that you're talking about, and indeed it is very convenient, although we do not see ourselves building into that direction, and it also boils down to consistency. So you have to launch this browser profile somewhere on a different server. And I would highly urge those users who using this solution to go ahead and actually check for consistency checks there. Now, if your Facebook accounts are working fine with this, good. We still think that it's not a really good idea, because there's quite a lot of consistency checks related to that. And you can simply do that. Go open that browser profile in a browser window and check and check for consistency. Check with these websites that I've told you. You'll definitely find some problems. So we don't really believe that. Now, like if you're talking about the interface of managing browser profiles from browser window itself, then okay, then we might think about that. That's kind of convenient. But launching within browser window, we just don't find it a very good long-term thing for users. I think we can provide this functionality. Maybe we could build it, but again, we also have to support it. And if there's some inconsistencies, we'll have to focus on fixing that. And we know the winning solution. We know the winning solution is launching browser profiles on your native computers. This works well, and we want to focus on that and stabilize what works.
Next question. This is a personal question. Some of my browser sessions, I always close them out properly with 1 or 2 windows open max. But sometimes and it's not consistent, but sometimes when I open up specific browser sessions I use often, they'll load with like 30 windows, which eats up a lot of this, whatever. It slows my computer down, right? So how can I set it up to avoid doing that?
Do I understand correctly that these 30 tabs are not the ones that you opened, or they were closed before? They were exited out. When I closed that specific browser session, it had maybe 1 or 2 tabs most. Could I possibly ask what version are you running? I've actually updated to the newest one, and I've always had this issue. Let me see if I can find the live example. John, actually, I'm going to be honest. I know about the issue, but I do not know the status of this issue. It's a bad. It's a small pain. It doesn't kill me. It's okay. John, I understand you. It's a bug. It's a bug. I accept it's a bug. Oh, easy enough. Next big question. Well, two questions. One, I know you just released an update. What can you share with our users the benefits of that specific update? And then also, what are the most current best settings? Maybe we could do a screen share for this part. And for optimizing specifically for Facebook use. Yeah, thanks very much. So Yes, we did two updates. Most of these there is 6.1.0 and 6.1.1. A lot of them are still tailored to stabilization, and this being allowing us to develop much more faster. I understand I've been saying this for a long time. Nonetheless, we just have to go through this work. In the couple of updates, we've updated to the latest Mimic core. This means that your browser profiles will be more relevant in the eyes of Facebook. We highly suggest that you update it and then update your browser profiles as well. And it also includes dark mode. Like dark mode is the thing right now. Just to give something that users have requested quite a lot, you can simply like change it, and it's dark mode. Dark mode is the new thing.
It's cool.
It's cool, yeah.
Let me do a screen share one more time. And if you could just recommend, so let's say for the application itself, are there any setting adjustments I want to make, or would you want to just go through setting up a fresh browser session?
So actually today I want to share you one finding, which is really cool in my understanding. And if at some point you see that your browser profiles are getting a selfie check like checkpoint, I'm sure you're aware what it is. It's just it asks you to make a selfie.
Where you turn off the hardware setting.
You have to just tell Facebook it actually doesn't matter if you have to turn on the hardware setting. It can happen randomly on some accounts. My recommendation is to go ahead and in your browser profiles, you can change media devices video input to 0.
Like if we go.
Did you know about this, John?
I thought it was a setting in.
No, media devices. Right? Yes. You turned it. Actually, it's better to turn on. It's actually better to turn on. Turn it on. And then put video to 0, but other inputs you can randomize.
Interesting.
You knew about it.
Yeah, this tells Facebook that you don't have a camera, so they won't request them. That's cool because I'm sure someone listening probably didn't know that. But yeah.
Okay, so awesome, nothing new today, but I'm always on the hunt for these
cool.
things.
Yeah.
Hopefully next time I can share some more.
I thought there was a setting. Now, best practices for hardware settings. Are there any adjustments? Are defaults typically best for Facebook, or is there anything you recommend?
Yeah, there's actually a couple of things I've noticed regarding this. A couple of users, it's just a couple of them. We've been talking. They found better consistency if you turn off audio context to off and WebGL image to off. And this especially like this, yes, and this especially is very good for if you're managing up to around 50 accounts on your Multilogin account. Because
for Facebook specifically?
For Facebook specifically, yes. And this comes into play only if you manage over 1,000 browser profiles. Then it kind of starts to make sense to turn it on.
Why is that? Do you have an explanation for the simple people like me?
So WebGL image, the same as audio context, is a parameter that which is not very diverse across computers. This means that, John, for example, I made example about your Mac. There's gonna be the same user who has the same Mac as you, and they will have the same WebGL parameter. And the thing is, WebGL is not the parameter itself doesn't have a lot of variety. This means
so you want less variance. You want it to be almost completely the same user to user for the most part.
Not entirely. With this specific parameter, it's actually better. So those parameters that have a very low variety, it's also sometimes labeled entropy, very low entropy. You better show your real parameters. It's better to show your real parameters because first of all, it's like there is no solution on the market right now, and I don't think there ever will be in the next couple of years where this hardware is changed to a point that it's real and it's distinct. Secondly, it doesn't really make sense to go into that deeply, because if you go ahead from, if you look from a perspective of analyzing browser fingerprints, then the website cannot really do anything with this. They will see that there's maybe 1 million computers, and 50% of all of these computers have the same, let's say, WebGL image hash, and you cannot do anything with this parameter.
Can I ask you a suggestion/question for the software?
Please.
Could there be a way, think of it like with like your TV, for example, you could change the video settings to be like for cinematic movies, for video games, with it changes like it updates frame rates and it updates refresh rates and, you know, multiple little settings like this. Is there a way you could build in a future where you could have like, I could custom set settings like this and then label it Facebook, for example, and then like mass apply it to all my browser sessions by default or as like a update? Would that be possible?
I love your suggestion. This is actually something on the table right now. We call it
Nice.
browser templates. So you can simply create a template. There will be pre-created templates. Yes, this is something. This is something on the
Super
table.
cool. And if it can auto update backwards, like with like a selection, that'd be super convenient. Like I have 80 some browser sessions right now, so I
also apply template to existing ones.
Yeah, that would be.
I'm not sure
cool.
if we thought about that. Oh, that's interesting.
That would be cool. That'd be super because as you're suggesting, like the best optimized settings will always be kind of changing a little bit. So I think that would be really helpful if it could mass update backwards. You know, or not backwards, but across.
Like mass apply the changes.
Yeah, exactly.
I wrote it down. Awesome. I didn't write it down physically, but I wrote it down in my head.
No, it's here. I got you.
Yeah.
Anything else here in storage options, browser plugins, extensions?
Yeah, there is one suggestion. So I also noticed that one of the questions that you asked is so that users can launch browser profiles faster. There is a way. You can go to storage options, and over there's going to be a thing called enable local storage and IndexedDB. So if you disable that, you can continue to manage Facebook accounts, and you'll launch browser profiles like very fast. Fast. Yes.
Let's test it.
But the thing is that it can be argued that it does decrease a bit of security. But from the other side, we've also made tests and we've talked to users who disable this. They claim, and our tests show that there isn't a difference. We kind of keep it there for other websites. Facebook's.
It's just more security. So you'd rather go with more protection versus less. Potentially just for user experience, right?
Yes, correct. And also some solutions also who are also faster in launching browser profiles. You should also make an audit whether they save this or no. Just check this. I'm not really sure if they enable this and still are faster, but definitely check that as well. So
save it. I had some questions pop in. Let me pull up Facebook. Okay, so Carlos asked, when adding a new Facebook account on a new profile, I'm assuming he means browser session, is it important to cookie farm, basically so that the browser is not completely blank or fresh, or can Facebook not really see that? So he's basically asking, do we need to run Cookie Robot? Is that required every time? Every time there's a new browser?
John, what do you think? I just really want to know what you think. Is it needed or no?
You're not gonna like my answer.
Tell me. I really want to know.
I've been doing no Cookie Robot more often than I do Cookie Robot. So I know it's a good best practice, but I like to push things as hard and simple, as fast as we can, and then see if it breaks. From my experience, it doesn't make a difference.
So why we know, like Facebook sees it? like it can be argued that maybe Facebook doesn't put much weight on it. That can be argued, but we definitely know Facebook sees it. Even so in their official documents, when there was a big scandal of Facebook, I mean, like there's many Facebook scandals, but the one where Mark Zuckerberg sat down with the United States Senate, they asked some questions from him, and he then his team followed up with a document. And in that document, you can find detailed explanations that they track so-called shadow profiles. And shadow profiles are those like profiles of you when you don't even have a Facebook account. And it can be argued that if you open it from a new browser and there is no history, then it can lead to something suspicious. What we know, and John, I know it's a different experience, but what we know is just launching a cookie robot, let's say on Monday for, let's say for 5 minutes per browser profile, and then creating an account on Friday is enough. It already gives some information to Facebook that it had some previous cookies, because you don't need to farm these, you don't need to launch cookie robot every day of the week. At some point, it doesn't really make sense to do so much, because actually Facebook also says that if they find a lot of links, then it's also suspicious. If there is no, it's also suspicious. So just having it a bit may or may not.
So there's probably more value if you're farming new accounts versus if you're taking 10 old profiles and starting to use them on browser sessions, correct?
That might be a very good explanation, yes.
Yeah, cool. So there you go. One other question from Carlos was, when adding a new Facebook account on a new profile, or no, that's the same one. Where did it go? He basically asked, it's not ideal to be 100% unique. And how do we avoid being, so like you were saying, the example, you don't want to be the purple cow. So how do we not be the purple cow, but still meet what Facebook prefers?
Largely, Multilogin already handles that. Yes, so Multilogin handles that. As I said, we structure Multilogin on these fundamental principles, and we already provide the best thing. From your perspective, Carlos, if you want to test some things, then you can think about very important fingerprints that we have to mask. And I can tell you right now a couple of them. One of the very important browser fingerprints that has a lot of distinction and should be changed and should be unique is the, let me remind myself, is the name of your video card. It is located in the hardware section, and it's under the setting of WebGL metadata when you click the option for masking. And the name is WebGL renderer. WebGL renderer shows your video card. This is something you should take care of. The next parameter I could argue, which is quite important, is your IP address. IP address is a unique one. Another important parameter that you can take a look at is in Navigator option, you have the user agent. Also, user agent should at least should show the operating system. And then a couple of very stable parameters such as accept language, which is the language. Also, it can be argued that language doesn't need to be unique, but it can be altered to be unique because typical users don't really change accept language. And also the second thing is the hardware concurrency, which it shows the amount of RAM you have. You kind of want to have some distinction there as well.
A question from Bart. You're still with me? I think the connection dropped for a second. Oh, there we go. Yeah. You're back. Okay.
Yes. Hello.
Next question. Why doesn't Multilogin have two-factor authentication? Is it because of the way you hash for encryption to start?
So two-factor authentication is something possible. I guess it just hasn't been done yet.
Okay. Cool.
So it just hasn't been done, but we can do it. it's something that we can do.
We're to the list. One more from Carlos. Facebook measures the running time of pieces of JavaScript code, measures the time between keystrokes on the keyboard, measures the time of mouse movement events, etc. Do you have any time shifting options coming out soon? Assuming that's true. I don't know.
Carlos, really good question. So this it boils down to behavioral analysis, and we are considering an application where it will kind of like add some random inputs when you type in a message. Yes, it is an option. It is a thing. The thing is, Carlos, you have to be very. You can take a look at the studies of this, keyboard biometrics, and they do provide some % of accuracy. However, it's not really to a point where websites can use it to effectively ban an account for this reason. It can trigger, but it's mostly used for authentication rather than finding if it's the same person across all other people. It becomes very difficult to do because it's it requires a lot of processing power. However, what can be done is, for example, you have a Facebook account, and then when you type in your password, you use your Facebook account sometimes, and then your sister or your friend uses this account, and they have a different keyboard keyboard fingerprint, and then Facebook can detect that it doesn't respond because the only thing they compare is your friend's signature and your signature. They don't match, trigger. However, imagine if they want to find if the same person is accessing hundreds of accounts, they have to check this one input across billions of accounts. That's not technically feasible. That is not technically feasible.
It's interesting because my opinion, once again, I'm not a developer. I mean, I'm a marketer. I'm good at selling. I'm good at working with people. I'm on the other end of the spectrum, man. My easiest way for my brain to comprehend multi-login in application with Facebook and with how Facebook views users' behavior is I assume Facebook's collecting every piece of information they can, but it really, on a simple way to put it, in my opinion, it's the question is, what pieces of information and behavior patterns does Facebook care about versus the ones where they're not designed to care at all, right? Because a lot of times there's theory that Facebook is looking and triggering because of these X, Y, and Z, but in reality, their system has that information but doesn't care at all, which is why a lot of this, you guys built the machine. It's up to us as the end user to experiment, to play, to try different theories and see what actually matters to Facebook, right?
Very true. Very true. Cannot disagree with anything that you said.
Last two questions. What has Facebook ever approached you? And if they did, would you sit down for an interview with them? And second question is, what's next for Multilogin, and what should people be excited about the most?
So no, never. They have never approached us and never wrote to us. Then again, we are creating a solution for managing browser profiles. Yes, so whether there will be any questions, I mean, we will see what happens. I cannot say what will be our right course of action. This probably will depend on what's the question. But then again, users should be should feel. I would like to urge everybody who's listening and using Multilogin to feel secure, because no matter what happens to Multilogin, your data is secure. It's there, and Multilogin will continue to work. We are protecting the company, and we're protecting our users with many various different things. So Multilogin will work. We love the product. We like, and we would like to continue to providing the service.
Awesome.
And
I'm a user.
Second question.
I'm a user for 2 years since I've had to start finding solutions, and Multilogin has been my go-to.
Happy to have a chat with you. That's why. What was the second question?
What's next for Multilogin, and what should people be excited about?
So. In this thing, I don't wanna say too much here, because in this regard, there are a couple of plans to move Multilogin towards the direction of helping people get things done faster. And I know I don't provide any details here, and I unfortunately do not want to provide. There's a couple of big plans, humongous big plans, and I think we can definitely handle these plans. But ultimately, we see Multilogin at the end of a couple of years is that it will save you a lot of time. John, I'm sorry. I cannot tell exactly what it is.
It's okay. No, it's a good tease, man. It keeps people coming back for the live videos. Cool. Awesome, man. Well, thank you again for joining us. I'm gonna end the live now. This will be posted on YouTube as well, assuming Stans and Taibo are cool with that, and also in our inner circle as well. And thank you again until next time.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
That was awesome, man. I appreciate it. Should be super cool. I could always learn more.